Hey everybody, how's it going today? It's Mark, and I'm excited about this new course, Trigger Killers, because it's going to revolutionize your life. There's going to be a lot of things that I want to convey, a lot of things that have helped me along the way immeasurably and have taken my life from, you know, figuratively speaking, from the guttermost to the uttermost. And I feel compelled and responsible to share this with other people because I get to enjoy a new life, life 2.0, a fresh start. I get to reimagine, rethink, redo everything, and it's exciting. Anyway, so today we're talking about trigger killers, and this is lesson one. And it's really all about how to win the mind game because really all of this is in our heads, every single piece of it, if you think about it. Because nothing really that we experience externally that comes into our lives or that we experience can be processed outside of the domain of the mind. Like every word that we see on a screen, like those words trigger and killers, are processed in the domain of the mind, right? Every image we see on TV, every magazine article we read, every bit of social media data that we allow into our minds is all processed there. And it's this huge um, portal, really, of information. And a lot of times we take that information and we either are bummed out by it or we're inspired by it, we're motivated by it. So what I want to do is I want to talk about how that idea of data coming into our minds affects the process of recovery, because so much of our addiction was fueled by data input, right? We were bummed, we were experiencing some negative consequences, or we were elated, we were celebrating, and a lot of the euphoric recall has to do with experiences, and they're all processed in the domain of the mind. So that's exactly what happens as we move along in the continuum of recovery. We swap out that tendency, the former tendency, to use that to fuel our addiction, and now we harness the power of our minds to fuel our recovery, and we can move along to a new life, life 2.0, life better than it's ever been, life that's amazing, life that's like the dreams that we've always had, can come true. And we really are in a position now where we can do anything that we want to do, anything that we put our minds to, right? And I know that we will still deal with self-doubt and limiting beliefs and negative people and negative circumstances, but the reality is now we have the capacity, through clarity and through recovery and through the principles of recovery, to really you know seize upon the power of our minds, and to use those minds and create, our minds for creativity, and to, you know excel in our relationships, and to, you know excel at our job, and in our jobs and in society. And maybe you have a business that you want to start, or maybe you want a promotion. All these things are possible now because you have a clear head, and you're moving along the right direction in the continuum of recovery, not backwards into addiction, but forwards into an amazing life where dreams are realized. So I want to talk a little bit about um, how all this starts, right? And so the first thing that I want to underscore is that it really is all in your brain. It's like a mind game. The early recovery experience is one very early on where our bodies are, sort of getting over the physical cravings, and that we get over that relatively quickly. And I say relatively quickly because it's relative in proportion to how much longer the mind game lasts with triggers. I mean, triggers are rude. They interrupt. They're always going to be there, but they do diminish in their power over time. And the things that we do now in our recovery with these triggers can determine how we respond to them. They do diminish, and we can have a lot more power over them as we grow in our recovery. So, we started drinking some time ago, and there was, or using drugs, and there was euphoria, some level of something that we really liked. It was an experience that we really liked. Now, I don't know about you, but like when, I was a kid, I started very young. Me and my friend Danny, you might know Danny, Brannon, and we were young, and we started off with drinking and drugs at a very early age, and it was great, and we had so much fun. We were in bands together, and we shared so much of our lives together, and we got into a lot of trouble together, because that's where that eventually leads you, is to really a world of trouble. Because what starts off is what seems like such a great, shiny, beautiful, amazing thing, this new feeling of euphoria, and you feel confident, you feel like super amazing and eloquent, but you're really none of those things. In the long run, it turns on you, and most of you know that to be true by now. But it all happens in the head, right? And as we continue on, in addiction or alcoholism, we find that it begins to ruin things. It begins to ruin relationships. It begins to ruin, our jobs, our vocational lives. It begins to ruin our organs, our health, our ability to connect the dots, to think basic thoughts, to be able to just, live a normal life. And it happens slowly and imperceptibly. It's not like this thing that one day you wake up and say, I think I'll become an alcoholic today. I think I'll become a heroin addict, or whatever it is today. No, it's all very slow, and then it just gets progressively worse. And through this prolonged exposure to alcohol and or other drugs, our brains become affected, and adversely so. And it takes time to change that around, to turn it around for the better. So in early recovery, your brain needs time and behavior changes to rebuild neural pathways. That's an important term, because this all has to do with brain chemistry. Those connections vital to healthy living and thinking, right? So all that destruction is being done while we're taking in substances. Over time, the progression gets worse, and we do more and more damage to our brains. Those healthy connections are destroyed. So it takes a lot of time to get that back, right? And that's why early recovery is a time when these, triggers occur at their highest level, because that's when most of the destruction is still present, right? Substances altered the connections that created their own destructive paths. So you have, if I could get a little technical, you have transmitters and neural and receptors, and they, in a normal way, speak to each other in a balanced way. And when we introduce substances into our brains, into our bodies, those get skewed and distorted and crooked and damaged. And so to rebuild those, it's a little bit like forging a path in the woods, right? How does a path get there? It doesn't just get there. It happens over a long period of time. It is made or remade only by walking a lot over time, right? So think of that metaphor, making a path through the woods, the metaphor for the proper communication of our neural pathways is it takes walking a lot over time. And that's really what recovery is. It's walking the walk a lot and over time. I wish there were shortcuts, and if there were, by now I surely would have found them, and you know, but that's just not the way it works. And until we know a better way, we know that this is the best way. So understanding sort of what the mind is going through is how we combat these triggers. It's we get the knowledge of what's happening in our head so that we can confront what's happening and then course correct and forge new pathways, neural pathways in our minds. So long after physical cravings go away, psychological triggers stay. And you know what these look like. It's, we're all human. We all have the same sort of human experience. And, you've heard people, places, and things a lot. You've probably, if you've been around sort of the language of recovery for any amount of time, no doubt you've heard this expression, people, places, and things. And the reason that it's repeated so often is because it's so true. Now, let me just be upfront and tell you that, while early on we're told to like sort of disassociate from certain people, places, and things, that you don't have to do that forever. But early on, it's good to really be careful and about measuring sort of how much exposure you're willing to allow yourself to, have people, places, and things create certain, impulses or feelings, emotions, all these powerful, powerful things that can lead us back into addiction. But since we're not talking about going back, we're talking about moving forward. We're talking about going onward. How do these things affect then our recovery? And so I think that it means, especially early on, is that we make a concerted effort to make people changes and place changes and changes in how we handle circumstances and things and how we listen to music and all that kind of thing, right? So first, people. I know that you know that people can have a certain amount of power over us if we let them. There's something about, the people that we choose to be around that can have either a negative effect on us or a positive effect on us. And I decided some time ago that I wasn't just going to settle for just letting anybody spew their input into my life, because I've been burned, like you have, enough to know when to cut certain people off and to set some healthy boundaries. And I got to tell you, that's okay. And I know we hear the language of making amends a lot, and we really need to do that, and there's a place for that. But there are certain people that are good to avoid. And you know who they are. You're probably thinking of somebody right now, right? You're probably thinking of a person right now or people right now that are toxic, that have a negative effect on your thinking, and then kind of make you want to drink, or make you numb yourself to it. So why would we let them have that kind of power over us, right? Why would we settle for letting other people have that kind of power over us? I say instead, block that. And especially like you think about social media, how amazing it is and how wonderful it is. And I use it and you use it probably too a lot. And there's a certain amount of things that happen on social media that can really be either negative or positive to us. It has to do with people, right? So I just want to just sort of free you up and let you know that it's okay to dissociate or at least distance yourself from certain people and be picky about who you allow into your life. That's okay. That's a good thing. Do that. If you're worried about being reconciled to somebody and you're worried that you may not be forgiving them if you're not reconciled to them, well, it takes two people to be reconciled. It only takes one person to forgive. If another person chooses, refuses to be reconciled to you, you can still forgive them. You can still enjoy the blessing of being in forgiveness and living a life of forgiveness without them reciprocating. I'd say you might just need to distance yourself from that person, or maybe disassociate altogether for however amount of time it takes, however long it takes. People, man, people. I could be a really great, amazing person if it weren't for people. But I'll tell you, it's just the universal truth that we're social creatures. We need people. It's like we have this love-hate relationship with them, and it's okay. And we have to be picky. And then how about this next one? Places. What do we associate our drinking or our using with certain places that we went. I know sometimes when I'm in the car, I'll drive by a certain place and I'll have this sick feeling in my gut about, some of the things that happened there and the experiences that occurred there. And I I'm so grateful for that gut feeling, that guttural gut feeling that makes it repulsive to me. Um, but there's also an allure, to some places where there were feelings of euphoria and good things happen. And we got to be careful. We got to be choosy. We got to be picky about these places, right? And then thirdly, things. Circumstances, they're out of our control. Certain things happen to us, but there are things that we can control, and maybe we have the wisdom to know the difference, right? And the courage, right? The things, how about music, social media? I'm just naming a few. You could name 10 more, I'm sure. But these are things that we have to be picky about, choosy about. Um, Maybe it's a job that's just no longer a good situation for you. You might want to think about a career change. I don't know. But I'll tell you, if it continually affects you in a negative way, you, it's a good thing to really think that thing all the way through. And so, if we're going to like reject certain people, places, or things, we need to replace them with other people, places, and things, right? Because it'll leave a vacuum or a void. And so that's why, I like to go to meetings where there are people just like me in recovery who sort of know the drill, where I won't be judged. I don't have to feel like there's going to be any stigma slathered on me because, I am this way. I have this proclivity toward addiction if I feed it. And I want to hang around the winners, right? So I just really have a high view of being in a community of recovering people, and to however much you is good for you to go, that's for you to determine. I don't make those judgment calls. I guess everybody's different. We are many and we are varied. But the one thing that I really want to underscore is this next point here. We don't recover by hiding from the world. And, maybe early on it's necessary. And that's why, rehabs are a month long, and some people stay for many months, and it's important for a season or for a time to sort of close off all of those negative impulses while we're getting through the physical aspects of it. And then early on about the triggers, the power of the triggers are especially powerful early on. But eventually recovery has to be about more about calculated measures of exposing ourselves to certain things over time so that desensitization can take place and that we can just go on with life, and then stop always being in a defensive posture and eventually going to an offensive posture. And that's so important, and that's really the point of my website, Triple Cherry Pie, is that this is about the good life. This is about no longer hiding and no longer living in this sort of frail place. It's about strength. It's about achieving our dreams. It's about success. It's about, you know, gathering successes and how, you know, small successes become large successes. And then the aggregate of these successes even render larger successes. It's about an amazing life. It's about living the life of your dreams. It's about going after it. It's about facing our challenges, not hiding or numbing. See, all that stuff was stuff that we did in our addiction, right? But now we face it. We face the world, right, with new strength and vigor, and we face it, and we do something about it. We actually can do uh, a lot of things, and and then this point here is a big point, you know, in this whole Life 2.0 construct that this website, Triple Cherry Pie, and then this course Trigger Killers is based upon, is that eventually recovery becomes less about what you can't do and more about what you can do. And that's important because, you know, when I was stuck in my addiction, I'd sit at the bar and I'd talk about all this stuff that I was going to do. I mean, I would just talk about all of the amazing things I was going to do and all these business plans and all this money that I was going to make. And I couldn't do one part of it. I couldn't do any of it because I was too busy talking about it. And I knew in my heart, way down deep inside, that as long as I was feeding my addiction to alcohol, and for me, prescription medicine with benzos, I knew that as long as I was stuck in that pattern, I could only talk. I could never do. And now that I'm in recovery and I'm winning, right, each day, day by day, I get clearer. I have more clarity. Life is more amazing. I have the capacity to do because I'm healthy and my body is healthy and my relationships are healthy and the way I think is healthy and the things that I allow myself to be exposed to are healthy. All healthy things, you know, healthy habits. And I can do the things, the make the business plans that I have now, I can do them. I don't have to talk anymore. And that's a beautiful and an amazing thing. And that's really the whole point of this course, Trigger Killers, is to kill the triggers and to give life to the dreams that we have. And really it all, to sum it up, is about this word purpose. It's all about purpose. What is your purpose? And we're going to be talking about that a lot in this course because really that's a foundation for a great life of recovery, is living for your purpose. You know, I can't stress this enough. Meaning, purpose, these higher things. It's no longer just about staying out of trouble, right? It used to be about that. Now it's about, man, the bigger things, that there's purpose in life. I remember when I was in the throes of my addiction, I used to actually say things like, nothing means anything, nothing matters, nothing is meaningful. And that was just completely a skewed, depressed way to view my life and my existence. And, you know, when you drink and you use drugs, guess what? That's the outcome. But in recovery, no. It's like, there is meaning, there is purpose, and I'm going to live for it. So I'm excited about this. I'm glad you're along for the ride. Go ahead and do the worksheet. Download the PDF file. If you want a coaching call, feel free to email me. I'd love to talk to you about this. But that's optional. It's up to you. Part of this paradigm of, you know, educational, creating an educational course for me is the ability, because you know, there's no shortage of information on the internet. You know, you can find information about recovery anywhere. But in the educational paradigm, in the educational approach, is that now you have skin in the game because you're entering into sort of a partnership. And I'm just as accountable for what you get out of it as you are, right? As the educator, as the teacher, right? I want to be able to help, right? And to the extent that you'll allow me to do that, I'll be happy to do that. And so go ahead, do the worksheet. If you want a coaching call, you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. Shoot me an email. triplecherrypie@gmail.com, and we'll hook that up. We'll see you on the next lesson.